Oh, hi, Darden.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Oh.
I'm here in D.C.
Oh, okay, you're in D.C. Okay. We've got Jeff Danner and Patty Johnson here, and waiting on Wen Gay. We also have, and we're not expecting Susan Latvala. And so that's the committee, and then we also have Bill Johnson here. We could go ahead and get started. The Gray Robinson folks will join the call, but they just sent me a message saying that they're in some kind of committee meeting where, which is timely because where the item related on your legislative agenda related to PSTA heart coordination follow-up, the interlocal agreement legislation that Senator Latvala has sponsored is in a committee meeting. Suffice to say, they're not available to be on the phone right now. But if you're okay, Chair Darden, we'll go ahead and get started.
That sounds great. And if it makes more sense for Jeff to join this meeting, since he's there and he pick up on visual cues, and I'm not, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. And have we heard any 24 hours within the last 24 hours, anything from Wen Gay?
He'll be here.
Okay. Okay, well, we can kind of just quickly run through, I guess, what I know about the Gray Robinson update, and if they chime in, I won't say much because I'm sure they'll have more to say. We put on your agenda, Bill, you have a copy of the agenda.
Yeah.
We put on the agenda sort of the three main areas of state legislative activity that we're following, and then at your places is a detailed table showing all the different bills that are related to transit or might be related to PSTA. Letter A is basically the funding, our state funding, about $5 million a year, and that is looking very positive, at least the last I heard. The DOT funding, the DOT budget bill was approved by some committee. I think it's the last step in the House before going to the Senate, to the floor yesterday. And so that looks promising. Section B, other legislation, of course, and that's all shown there. That's moving forward. I think the one about bus stops was a bill submitted that would prohibit transit buses from stopping on roadways and require us to stop off of, that we couldn't block traffic, because I believe it was a state senator. A senator was driving in a rural area and had to wait behind a stopped bus as they loaded a wheelchair one day, and so he filed a bill. That doesn't seem to be moving forward, at least the last I heard. And then the bench liability issue is an issue that's come up over the years, related largely to those, what do they call them?
JCs.
The JC benches.
Yes.
JC benches. Last year, there was legislation approved that absolved the Florida DOT or the state from any liability associated with a lawsuit associated with JC benches placed along state-owned right-of-way. So that is the law of the land. If a ADA or some other kind of lawsuit were ever to be filed related to a JC bench issue on a state roadway, the state cannot be party or believes that they would not be party to anything suit, and the liability would fall upon the transit agency and municipalities that allowed that J.C. Bench to be there, and the J.C. Bench company. Of course, the J.C. Bench people believe they have no liability for anything that they do, generally. There is new legislation this year to, I think, is it on here? There's something new that's come up with this. I think it's to clarify that whole issue. And C, the PSTA heart coordination follow-up. Again, the Gray Robinson people are in the Senate Committee on Community Affairs, where is hearing Senator Latvala and House Representative Peters' bill to add public transit agencies to a section of the Florida law allowing us to enter into interlocal agreements. It's at least there's been, all of the standard analyses done by committee staffers on this bill. It's a no-cost thing, and it seems relatively benign. There's other transit agencies in other part of the state that have expressed their support for it. I don't know why, but I have heard that perhaps some folks, maybe from Hillsborough County, have expressed concern about what it might mean. But essentially, it just adds public transit agencies to the list that already includes cities and counties under the statute that allows us to enter into interlocal agreements.
Can we not do it now?
Alan Zimmett believes we could do it now, but thinks, and this was also the advice of, he said, the belief of the former legal counsel of Hart, Chip Fletcher, who's no longer their attorney. They thought that it would be important to clarify, it would be good to clarify it in the legislation. And then the attorneys up in Tallahassee that I don't know exactly what they responded to an inquiry by Senator Latvala's office to check into this. They talked with Alan and Chip, and they believe that yes, it would be better to have transit agencies specifically named. So that's what I know about that.
Fred, I think that you will find that there may be another avenue of requesting a further in-depth audit for Park as a result of this and a couple of other studies that are being done.
Yes, I think we contained within the FDOT budget appropriation is funding that I think Senator Latvala put in there to fund an additional study.
More in-depth.
More in-depth
study.
I don't know all the details, but I believe it has to do with confirming, there's some language in there about confirming the cost savings.
Right.
And it does specifically state that TBARDA will get the, needs to implement the study. This,
and oversee it.
Right. Are there any other questions? And maybe Gray Robinson will be here, maybe not. Okay, if we're okay with that, then I would like to have Cassandra tell you about this regional fare collection project, which I don't think the PSTA board members know much about, but we are, Cassandra and our IT folks and others are working very hard on. Take it away.
Thank you. We are always looking for ways to better serve our customers. One of those ways is to look at modernizing how we collect fares, but also how we have interoperability between the transit service providers across the region. HART had convened a regional fare collection working group, and they wanted to look into were there opportunities for us all to have one fare medium so we could, again, interoperability between the agencies. Right now, our fare boxes are in pretty good shape and do accommodate other fare media. HARTS does not. They are in a position where they need to replace all of their fare boxes. That being said, there are also opportunities for funding if we do this as a region. We take a look at what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and if we come up with a singular program. So PSTA and our staff, Debbie Woodward and Rita Hoffman, been taking lead on a lot of the technical work. We've been talking to HART about how to put together a region-wide approach to a smart card and what that would mean for PSTA in terms of what would be a first, second, and third phase of implementing an entire smart card system. We haven't gotten into the public awareness or teaching riders how to use it, but we are talking about, from the technical standpoint, how would we incorporate new top covers for our fare boxes that would allow smart cards to be read, what kind of ticket vending machines we might use at our outlets or at our transfer facilities, whether those would be use cash or be cashless, again going to something more modern and something more manageable on an electronic basis. We're looking at how it would affect our TV program and how it could smooth out the beginning of the month for our customer service reps. But again, looking at the costs and then what it would take to implement a first, second, and third phase across the system. We are also working with FDOT on looking at what intermodal funds might be available. Those are funds that are used for public transportation. Now, when we say public transportation, we think transit, but when the DOT says the Public Transportation Office, they also mean airports and seaports. And so this is an opportunity for, if we do this as a region, we could capture these dollars instead of having them go to another transportation provider, like the airport or the port. So we are also working with FDOT on how to structure this overall program of this smart card and how that would work for each agency. We're going to have a overview meeting at the TBARTA Transit Management Committee meeting, and then have another working group meeting on April 19th. But we're working very quickly to get that first phase ready to go to FDOT as a grant application. That particular grant program that we're applying for does not require a match and must be regional. FDOT also is, because they like this idea, this concept of us really working together and then coming up with a project and a program that is truly transformational for the region. They're also going to talk about some other opportunities. So we're going in with a fairly big ask. We're working on what those numbers actually are for each agency. So we'll get those, we'll have those in the next week or so, what the total ask would be for the region for everybody to be able to use a smart card. But then it would allow anyone to take a regional bus line, with about 15 routes, across the region, across county lines, and use their smart card on any local bus, as well as the regional.
And could that, talking with DOT, could it be part of your SunPass account? You have those conversations?
We've talked briefly about, could it be like that? We don't know if the vendor would allow that, but it would be one of the things that would be part of the program would be an e-pay option. So we are looking into an online portal where people would have an account, and it would be a single portal for the region. So anybody could go and have an account. But to have it linked to the SunPass, yeah, that might be an extra step. Take a look.
Be convenient if it's got one. Anyway. And then also,
But you don't carry that around with you.
right. But I mean, you'd have one account that you could load, and then you could get a card and a transfer.
You have multiple.
Yeah.
That is the way of the future. Most of the big cities in the United States have invested and have smart card systems that are probably on average of 3 to 5 years old. The two that I know of, the two large systems that have not gotten smart cards are Chicago and Philadelphia. And so they have now programmed $50 million or $30 million to get smart card technology, and the technology they're instituting is a next generation that it's like your normal, if you have a smart card from Washington Metro or anything like that, it's the same thing, but it also is a debit card. It says Visa or MasterCard on the side of it, so it can be used anywhere. You buy the money, you put the money on it, and then it can be used for the transit or for any kind of purchase. So it's even better for customers. Now this is brand new. This is done in Europe, of course, but it's not done in America. If you go out right now, even in St. Petersburg or in Pinellas County, to a lot of the retail places, they have a little tap. You can get a Visa or MasterCard, an proximity reader for your card. And so whether or not it's a ripe enough technology right away, I think even Philly and Chicago are both kind of phasing this in. This ability to use the money that's on the debit card for something else. But something we certainly need to look at. What we're talking about doing is basically leaving our fare boxes on the bus as they are now, but then attaching like an add-on thing like McDonald's, like a little reader that you would, if you had a smart card, you would tap it, and it would deduct the.
And they're at a substantially lower cost than replacing the entire fare box, and in theory, it could help us stretch out our replacement program, or allow us to do some other things by having it be a lower cost option. Still get us the technology.
And if you could, when having those discussions with vendors about other entities using it, we had talked about St. Pete, our parking meters can have card readers added. And again, if you could have your SunPass do your garage, your parking meter, your bus pass, just all modes, you would just tap it or swipe it. I think that would be real convenient.
What is the lifespan of Scarebox anyway?
That's up for debate.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it used to be a really long time. I think the technology moved so fast. Over the last couple months, I've heard everything from 7 years to 20 years. I think 20 years is way too long. So ours right now are 12 years old. And are set to replace them in 2017 and 2018.
So PSTA's current fare boxes, which are considered modern compared to Hart's 25-year-old fare boxes, yeah, are 12 years old today, and then when we have in our CIP to replace them, they will be 17 years old. Hart doesn't have any money in their CIP to replace their 25-year-old fare boxes, and so that their desire, they have real problems in handling cash, you know, cash transactions on the bus, and that's what breaks on these things is the cash handling. The dollar bills and get jammed, or they have gum on them. If you have a 25-year-old piece of like machinery, it just doesn't work very well. That's another benefit. That's how a smart card system could actually extend the life, because it reduces the use of cash.
Lead to, like our bus passes and hall passes and monthly passes to be a card instead of a paper swipe.
We've looked into a number of different kinds of cards, and we've done some research with some different properties about the kinds that they're using, like temporary cards, if they're using something a little sturdier. And what we found is there are ones that are a little bit more expensive, but they're also harder to hack and harder to replicate, and they also last a lot longer.
Go through the machines and
Well, they're not even going through the machine, you're just hacking them.
good.
Isn't there a telephone? Cell phone?
And we were just talking about that this
I-
morning with the top covers, is the, some of the pricing that we're looking into. They're not sure how much that added feature, forefront of the technology. And so what we're trying to do is get a cost to include that option, so you could have it on your phone or with the card. But I don't know if we'll end up going in that direction. We just have to do a little bit more research about the possibilities. But that, we were talking about that exact thing this morning. And I know that Starbucks does that, and we talked about with the QR codes and the,
Yeah. The reason that I think this is topical for the legislative committee is because this, this did have its origins with the Hart consolidation study. The one of the low-hanging fruits that the consultant study identified was integrated fare systems, and it certainly was discussed between the staffs about having a regional smart card kind of initiative. Hart has their own sort of need, which is their really old fare box system that they don't have any money for, and. But as Cassandra said, by making this into a region-wide thing, that attracted FDOT and their money, because they are looking for ways to promote regional thinking, as the Secretary of Transportation has said. So this seems like a real positive, great thing that we might actually be able to make this thing happen.
and we're not just working with the District 7 counties, we're also just working with some of the District 1 counties. So it's every county from Citrus to Sarasota over to Polk is included in the conversation. Not everyone has decided to go to the next step of being part of the grant application, and the monies would be separate from District 1 and District 7. But it is good to know that we could connect to our neighbors to the south as well as to the east and north.
No, putting that into the park links.
Well,
If we can.
yes,
use-
there's this is a very timely conversation as a state, because South Florida transit service providers are also having the same conversation. And so on a statewide basis, we could even try to get something together where you could potentially use that card across the entire state. Now, like you do the Sun.
But really, the way it's going to go is that it's all going to become just MasterCard or Visa, and then even SunPass will be just a debit card, I bet. It's not going to be a transportation thing.
Account. You won't have a separate SunPass account, you just have your.
Yeah. That's what the transit's getting this open access where you can use basically any kind of, tap card,
Implanted and found.
implant, yeah. Put your hand up to the, as you drive under the SunPass reader.
I
All right.
have one question. We spend a lot of money in social services buying bus passes to make sure that bus passes don't, and they still do, don't get spent on other things.
Mm-hmm.
How would we be able to? Can you bring that up while you're
Well, you know,
researching?
you can buy, it's more expensive, but you can buy smart cards that have kind of like a brain in them that they can segment out. Okay, this $25 is only for riding the bus, and this $25 is for any purchase. They can have like different purses, I think they call them, on the same piece of plastic.
Okay.
Or you can just lump it all together, then they could spend it on anything, which maybe you don't want to do. And so, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're all, all of this is new and we want to pick the right thing that is going to be something that we can implement, something that will go well with our riding public, and so we're doing all of that research of how far do we want to go with this and how far do we want to take the technology, and then how do we pick something now that is adaptable over time, because I think the technology is going to continue to change.
Right.
But it would be, it would be really nice to be able to take the 300X over and get on the streetcar.
Right.
So with just one pass.
Good.
Yeah, hopefully it'll work out. Okay, the last agenda item on our agenda for this committee is called Green Light Pinellas Process Oversight. I spoke to the chair, Rice, about whether or not the PSTA Legislative Committee should continue to meet monthly following the conclusion this month of the Tallahassee legislative session. Last year, under the chair Kathleen Peters, we took a brief hiatus. Our plan was to take a hiatus during after the legislative session ended, but then the HART consolidation study came up, and then so this committee then became the HART Consolidation Study Oversight Committee for the PSTA board that met twice. So there wasn't really much of a break, but there was, I think, I don't think we met in May and June as a committee. And we could do the same thing again and not have the committee meet. We don't particularly have the greatest attendance at this meeting, as noted. And but as an alternative, and something I think would be, but it really is up to the committee. As an alternative to talking about Tallahassee legislation, which I'm not sure there will be any discussion on that, would be for this committee to help the PSTA board. Again, the purpose of all the committees of PSTA are to help the board with their business and to oversee the overall agency. It's not to make policy on their own. Is for this committee to be the sort of logistical, that may not be actually a word, the logistics committee for the Green Light Pinellas process. And I had Rachel make a copy, Darden, I emailed it to you. This was a copy of the complicated process. Complicated process that Tucker Hall has recommended as part of their Green Light Pinellas outreach process over the next 6 months. And this is going to be presented to the PSTA board in at your April meeting this month. But I thought it might help the board rather, because I know as at least Mr. Johnson and Mr. Danner who are here, saw yesterday at the ACPT meeting, there is just a lot of concern and discussion about exactly the processes that we follow as we make our way toward November of 2014. And I thought maybe it would help, rather than have the discussions as they may come up, well, who's on the different committees, how are the committees being formulated, what's going on with Greenlight over the next, say, 3 or 4 months, rather than that happening at the regular PSTA meetings, which may take a very long time, and there might be a lot of discussion. If a committee would have some of those discussions, that would help. That would help keep the PSTA board meetings running smoothly. The planning committee of PSTA, which Mr. Johnson and Patty, you're on, already has a fairly full agenda over the next several months as we develop the FY14 budget. You're not on it? Darvin's on it. Oh, okay, sorry. That committee is pretty loaded with the budget, and it will be sort of the main group helping the PSTA board on the bus study recommendations. So I thought maybe the legislative committee, sort of in the spirit that Herb Polson gave it when it started, of being the outreach committee of the PSTA board for all aspects, not just Tallahassee or DC, but also locally, could oversee the implementation of this green light process. Again, that would be a task that would take us through about next November, which would be a time to then start up again discussing statewide legislative issues for the 14 session. Any thoughts on that idea? But if you don't want to do that, that's fine with me too. We'll do something else, or not have to do it.
So what would some of the typical oversight activities be?
I would say that we would perhaps not have to even meet monthly, but we would meet probably at least in 2 months and get feedback on whether anything on this plan has changed or needs to change because of new events, or as we unveil the website and these green light panels and get some of the materials out that, as you saw, as those of you who've seen it saw, asked me about green light, where there's different groups out in the community that are not part of PSTA that are starting to chime in, hopefully, about the green light plan and the bus plan and the referendum. We could provide that to you, and you could either make recommendations on changing the plan as we move forward to the PSTA board, or modifying it, or suggesting alternative ways. I kind of worry about just having the PSTA board, the full PSTA board, approve the green light process this month, which hopefully they will do. And then, while the PSTA board is going to be approving of the bus plan recommendations, there's not going to be a lot of presentations about green lights and the activities that are going on out in the community, which all of you are very involved with, back at the PSTA board level. So I thought, well, maybe we should have some part of the PSTA board hearing about what's going on and making sure we're on the right track.
Well, I talked a little bit to Cassandra yesterday about the schedule, and the thing that I wonder about, we're going out and we're saying we really want to engage the public, we want to hear what they think, and they're going to come up with some ideas. And it seems to me that we need to have some kind of a process or way of dealing with those ideas, accepting those suggestions, making the modifications in the plan. And I don't see that rework effort on the chart. I don't know how much rework is going to be required, but if we're asking for suggestions, we need to have that process identified. And so that's the one thing. I've been amazed at the discussion with the ACPT about where do they fit, are they a legal entity, and I never realized that the PAC was, other than looking at the title, that they're an advisory board, they never really presented a recommendation for approval along the way. It was just kind of they were doing the whole thing. But having some, whatever it is, having it specified is appropriate. Do they report to the county commission? Do they report to PSTA? What is their, it goes back to that, so in December we drafted up a charter for the ACPT that is now coming back in another version, and I think that's good. I think there needs to be a process whereby the rest of the PSTA board members can make sure that they have a chance to do their input into this process too. And I agree with you that doing that in a committee of 15 on a Wednesday morning is not effective.
It might be helpful, and by the way, I'm definitely in favor of this. I think it's a good idea. It might be a good idea to elicit some feedback from the PSTA board to get an idea of what kind of updates people want to hear from us on this and what types of information would be most helpful.
It's a good idea. Yeah,
And I'm sorry, let me just, sorry, I can't see this, I don't mean to interrupt. And Brett, I think I might have just heard you say something a second ago about meeting in 2 months. And I never thought that I would advocate for having more meetings, but I think the success to this is really all about engagement and engaging with the public. I think this committee has to be engaged as well. So I would be in favor of maintaining at least monthly meetings and having a meeting in advance of the PSTA general board meeting so that we would be able to give a fresh update to the whole board.
Okay. Patty?
I don't know anything about any of it. I'm one of those people on the 15-member board that I don't have a button. I don't know what's going on. I don't have a clue about any of it.
you're going to get away.
Well, I don't care about the button crap. I just, the only thing I know about the whole process is what I read in the paper. That's it.
Right, but as I heard, you are doing a great job attending different meetings out in your community, giving feedback on what other folks are saying. Oh, you got a button. And as Mr. Johnson said, I mean, that is one of the keys is we are trying to create this process to get feedback from everybody.
I have lots of feedback, Brad, but
I know,
don't have
you're
lots of
getting
answers.
And it's great to call me and leave text messages for me and stuff like that, but the board wants to know that too, what you're hearing. And as he said, sometimes it's not so easy to do that in at the Wednesday morning 15 without it having gone through a committee or discussed at a committee levels beforehand. At least that's the way it's shown with the other committees.
So when we, I'm sorry,
No,
some of the conversations the other day about, you know, the PPC having their input on land use and making a recommendation for elements to be put into the green light plan, making those recommendations to the ACPT. But then, is it your thought that then the legislative, which is now the oversight committee, would facilitate that, or be the ones to report back to the PPC that your elements are in and here's the presentation, or
No.
how do you
Again,
see it function?
I want to try to, and I work hard on this, the hardest one is the planning committee, but all of the PSTA committees only, and there's no need for a chart, their only job is to help out the PSTA 15.
Okay.
So the committee wouldn't do any action that would report to PPC. If
Just report to PSTA.
yeah, if at the end of this process in August, which on this chart shows in August, these different public groups, business, government, and civic will have met and will be taking action or making modifications. At the same time is when the PSTA board is approving of or accepting of the bus plans, bus study. It's also the same time that the land use piece is being wrapped up by the MPO. And so on the other chart that I passed out yesterday, we don't have it here, it shows in September, as this, right before this Green Light Council meets, the PSTA board will have to approve of the total package in some sort of action that I haven't come up with yet. But that will approve of the total package, which includes all those elements, as in order to present it through the green light process and then on to Canal Scout. And I don't want to take that cold to the PSTA board full 15. I think maybe it would be good to have a committee that I could go to that would telling me I'm, whatever.
Headed in the right direction.
Yeah. Headed in the right direction.
Do you want an action on that, or a recommendation or motion to, are you going to bring back something more, another chart?
You can't actually do that, I guess. Well, I mean, you can say whatever you want, I guess. Cannot. Well, we don't have a quorum at the committee.
You have two and one on the phone.
we have three.
The one on the phone doesn't count, according to
You're kidding.
for a vote, according to our very conservative attorney on this. But I think you can
I didn't know that.
what's the word? Consensus is not the word. You can make your recommendations.
Sense of the committee.
So the sense of the committee is to recommend this to the PSTA board as part of their motion next in 2 weeks, as they review and consider approving of the green light process. That the legislative committee would be tasked within the PSTA world as the committee that would kind of oversee how this process goes for PSTA.
The reason you're reading puzzlement on my page is going back to the comment that you made, that you learn more about this from reading the newspaper than you do about from what you get at PSTA. Did I hear that right?
You did. Did you not hear Janet Long at the last PSTA meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And the people sitting
Well,
next to me?
I wasn't at the last PSTA meeting.
I'm sorry,
but-
Bill, you were not.
Yeah, but
But And then the new people next to me didn't know either. So,
It
Well, it's
seems-
because that was presented to ACPT
right.
2 days earlier and didn't have time to get on the agenda for PSTA until this month. So
Right.
everyone at ACPT heard it, it went in the newspaper and the media,
Oh, this-
and it was just a
referring
timing
to
issue.
Green Line Canal.
Right.
Yeah.
Not the,
Not this.
yeah. There's so much in this package that we're going to have to approve in September that, and we have quite a few new board members. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, how do we comfortably get all the board members up to speed and knowledgeable such that we have a strong and unified decision?
You can figure that out.
Have a training, a board training or orientation
Separate
might be one way to address that.
board.
I mean, we already do have a system, sort of probably not a formal or multi-day training course, but I have met and gone over green light, well, no, not green light, what PSA is doing with all 15 members. You know, I think it really speaks to the committees. At least what I have been telling new members of PSTA is that, and I at least have spoken to several committee members, that they do find the committees to be helpful ways for them to get up to speed and provide input in an easier way than at the PSTA board, or the way the PSTA board used to be when it didn't have any committees. So as far, yes, there is a lot with this. This is, you know, this is everything that we're working on. So I think it's good to be discussed at the committee level. And I don't think it's necessarily a benefit to have everything go to the same committee. In fact, the executive committee said that to me. That's one of the reasons we created a more robust finance and performance management committee, is so that not everything went to planning. So this would even be diversifying it a little bit more by having the legislative committee be more of our outreach.
But you go back to the Herb Polson's comment, this is the External Communications Committee.
Yeah, and you said that's what St. Pete has, for intergovernmental relations.
Yeah, we do. Our legislative committee is also intergovernmental relations. So whenever we have to deal with another municipality, it goes to the legislative committee. Okay, so consensus to pursue further?
The planning
Nodding.
committee may have
Yes.
some different ideas, but
Yes, I'm sure they will.
Who's the,
Brad,
Yeah.
I know that you've been meeting with people one-on-one, but I think that addressing the needs of the training needs of new board members is a good point. And maybe what would be good is to come up with some sort of, you know, not too detailed and overly belabored document, but maybe some like short one-pager, like needs assessment, and kind of get a feel where board members feel like most comfortable and command of what's going on, but also get an opportunity to see where people would like more information or more training, and just see what that needs assessment tells us, and then maybe that would tell us what we need to do. Maybe as part of this green light process, we could kick it off with having some type of orientation meeting that would cover some of the issues that the needs assessment flags. And if the needs assessment doesn't turn anything up, then we don't need to do it. But it would be part of the process of asking the board what would be most helpful to them, in terms of what our committee could deliver and provide information on about green line.
Brad's nodding. and they can't see.
Yes, I'm nodding. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else we need to cover?
No, I think we're gone through our agenda.
Any other questions or thoughts? Bill?
When I was up in Tallahassee, have I relayed this to this committee before? I was up in Tallahassee, well, it was, I guess, the last board meeting for Florida University Day. And I had a conversation with Ed Hooper, who's the chair of the Transportation Appropriations Committee. And he was going over the asks that came from Ellis County, and so he was able to respond to two of the asks that came from, actually PSTA, I guess, was the transit station in St. Pete and the Clearwater. And his comment was that really they funded what was in the LRTP, the MPO plan, and because these had kind of come in as, well, here's some ideas that they really weren't accepted and given serious consideration to. And so that's just for the future.
Put it on the APO agenda.
We need to integrate and include the MPO in our legislative funding process.
And you're sure he said the LRTP and it wasn't something
No.
else? Because
The
I
5-year
heard that he said
What you
the
said was
5-year.
5 year.
He used the term 5-year plan.
And we've talked about this before, and it's, when you put something in the cost affordable 5-year, whether it's the FDOT work program or the TIP, you have to have your funding secured. So it's a catch-22, how can they fund stuff that's in there when we've already prioritized funding to go to it? So the example of the Clearwater Intermodal Center, that would never be in the cost affordable plan if it's trying to get funding, unless we make the assumption that it is going to get funding. And so it becomes if you think you're going to get funding, then you can put it in that plan, but that becomes an assumption of that plan. And, so which comes first? We've had that discussion before about.
I'm reporting what you
No,
told me.
I
You
totally
did
get it.
report it at the last or some meeting, because you weren't at the PSTA meeting. You reported that we're trying to, you think that Representative Hooper
He also said
said
that
something that doesn't necessarily make sense.
our asks were sporting.
Sporting?
Sporting. And I said, what do you mean by sporting? He said, pretty big. Without, so.
He thinks they're
He could
big?
give us half of it. He could,
Well, the
No, it
other
was
thing
like-
is, what FDOT is looking for is to make sure that it's in the TDP. And so during our updates, and especially our major update, when we start to look at a new 10-year time horizon, we say, what are the projects that we would like to do in that 10-year time horizon? That is going to be that wish list of, if funding was available, this is what we would do, and then we pull back to our own cost affordable plan. And so if it's in there, that automatically gets translated into the long-range transportation plan.
so,
And does that show if there's other funding sources? Clearwater owns the land, that's got a value to it. St. Pete has dollars set aside to build something once we buy the land. I mean, that's not going to come up. He probably doesn't know that by reading our legislative agenda.
well, but, I mean, we checked in because there's an earmark, a 1.25 million earmark the PSTA got for the Clearwater Intermodal that's in the TIP. So it's in there. And then both the St. Pete and the Clearwater are in our TDP.